to know steel workers on the Golden Gate Bridge who paint the bridge. It's a constant paint job. And they have told me that the rivets are constantly breaking on that bridge. The bridge is falling apart. It's rusting right in front of our eyes. It needs to be maintained constantly. The spools of wire that suspend the bridge are constantly being respooled. The bridge is old. It's weak. You have to understand there are realities to the infrastructure, and the realities are they get old just like we do. And again, I want to remind you that the crash was caused not by a failure of the infrastructure, but by the engineer who was probably stoned or asleep or something. And by the way, did they drug test the engineer? Did the NTSB insist on a drug test immediately? If not, why not? Well, probably the lawyer. Didn't let them drug test him. I'm not sure. But irrespective of the cause of this train accident, the U.S. infrastructure is in terrible shape. It's broken. We all know this. We all know the train was speeding, and we know that's the cause of the accident, not a broken rail, not a broken train. So let's be clear about that. But both sides have politicized the train crash. Immediately, Nancy Pelosi, who never met a road project she didn't like, started to say, well, listen to what she had to say, and you'll understand what I'm saying. Nancy Pelosi, please, if you don't mind.
No maintenance is the most expensive maintenance when it comes to maintaining the safety of our infrastructure.
All right,
we saw President Eisenhower at a time of tough economic times.
Oh, you got the picture. Right away, she wants road construction for obvious reasons. All roads lead to Rome. Okay, we know that. She wants public works projects for the, let us say, secondary benefits of such. Let's leave it at that. I'll try to walk the line on this. If you got out of your bubble and actually looked at the roads, the bridges, the tunnels in America, you'd realize they're in very bad shape. You would realize that our bridges are falling apart. Our tunnels are leaking. Our roadways are broken because the infrastructure needs a vast revamping. And I want to talk about that because both sides have politicized the issue of the train crash. Knee-jerk conservatives attack liberals who say we need to rebuild the infrastructure. Liberals who like big government say we need more government spending. Is there anyone listening to this program right now, the Savage Nation, who says we do not need our roads, rails, bridges, and tunnels upgraded? I'd like to know where you're coming from. Here in America, we happen to be worse off than several third world nations. Malaysia, for example, has better roads than we do in America. So why do doctrinaire Republican water carriers politicize the train crash? Why do they immediately attack Democrats who call for infrastructure upgrades? They're no better than the liberals in their doctrinaire approach. Again, we know the train crash was not caused by an infrastructure failure, but by a probably stoner engineer, maybe even an attempted suicide by train. We don't know. Sort of like that German plane crash. We don't know what happened here. Or he was on drugs or meds, or he was asleep. God knows. But the point is, common sense dictates that our bridges, tunnels, rails, and are antiquated and falling apart. The difference between Michael Savage and the others in the radio is that I grew up poor. My father actually worked on a government job, or he would have starved to death in the 1930s. He would have starved to death or probably had to turn to crime in order to survive, as did some of his poor friends. You don't know any of this. So what are you saying? The government's always bad? Was it not for vast government spending, he wouldn't have had the little job that got him started on the road to being a small businessman. And one of his best friends, who went on to owning bars and restaurants, a poor, tough kid from New York, got a job in the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC camps, which he told us about when we were little kids. The Civilian Conservation Corps was part of the New Deal, and the CCC employed 2 million men. 2 million men who worked on any job imaginable, construction, farming, you name it. They gave them an income, and it was filled with tough boys, mainly from the lowest echelons of society. And he told us about the fights they had in the camps. They weren't all blood brothers because they were mainly white. They fought with each other like animals for dominance. So let's put the racial issue out of it. What I'm trying to say to you is that infrastructure, government jobs are not necessarily a bad thing. The issue is who manages the government. The issue is how do you control the graft. The issue is keep the unions out of it. So I want you to understand that unless we had government spending, you wouldn't have had the Lincoln Tunnel, the LaGuardia Airport, the Triborough Bridge, Empire State Building, the George Washington Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, Shasta Dam, and so many other phenomenal feats of engineering. That's the story, my friends. The federal government played a big role in these projects. They were indispensable to most of these projects. So we're talking about that, my new novel, Countdown to Mecca. How do I know all these things? How do I have the ability to describe advanced aircraft, advanced weapons, generals, what West Point looks like, Mossad? How do I have the ability to create Mossad agents and talk about stations in Israel? How do I know all of these things? How did I figure it out? How do I create a Jewish gangster who doesn't exist? How do I create a Jack Hatfield? Where do these things come from? My imagination, that's where. And that's what a novel is supposed to be. It's supposed to be novel, new. What does novel mean? Interesting, new. That's all it means. Say, oh, that's a novel idea, right? That's what it means. So it's a story. I don't know these people. I don't know any Jewish gangsters. And I could make a joke, but no, I don't know any Jewish gangsters. I don't know any generals. I don't know any hookers. I don't know any disgraced journalists. I don't know any clowns who had been in motorcycle accidents. But I invent them. I remember when I was younger, I used to think about Shakespeare's many characters, like in one play. He'd have the fool, he'd have the king, he'd have the daughter, he'd have the this, I said, how could he come up with all these characters? How do they exist in his mind without him getting lost and not knowing who he is? I know it was a problem for me when I was young, when I didn't have presence of mind. It's very hard when you're forming your personality and you're growing up to understand that you can have all of these characters visualized in your own head without losing yourself. Do you understand that? Now, this is, I never had this discussion ever in the world with anyone or on radio. And I've thought about actors, why they're so, I want to use the exact word I'm looking for, why actors are so shallow. You take a guy like Sean Penn, you know he's a shallow, empty soul. You can look at him and know he's a fraud. You know he doesn't know himself from his characters. You know he can't differentiate the real Sean Penn from the phonies he plays, the fake tough guys. And it's the same with many of the people in the media. They get lost in their characterizations on screen with who they are, which is why so many of them are on drugs and alcohol. Why they go into rehab, they don't know who they are. They're very good at what they do. I love acting. I love movies, as you know. I watch movies very frequently. I admire it enormously, but I don't look to them for political ideas or any leadership. Most of them are empty heads who couldn't go to a regular college, so they went into acting. Not all of them, but most of them in America are not well educated. They don't even know the world around them, which is not true, by the way, in all countries. But nevertheless, in our country, most of them are empty and shallow, just as you would expect. But the point I'm making is that most actors lose themselves in their role in real life, and they start acting out one of the roles they played or they portray in movies in real life, and they don't know who they are. And they get frightened when confronted with the question of who they are. I don't suffer from that. I did when I was young. Don't get me wrong. There was a time in my life when I was younger when it was very hard to know who I am. That's a great question. Who am I? Did you ever ask yourself that question? That's a nice question for a rainy afternoon. But as a great philosopher wrote, I think, therefore I am. I've changed that slightly to I speak, therefore I am. And so let's turn back to the talk show called The Savage Nation. Dem senator accuses Obama of sexism toward Elizabeth Warren. You talk about the insanity of the left. Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown. I don't know what Sherrod Brown is. What is a Sherrod Brown? Is that a flavor of ice cream? Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown accuses President Obama of sexism in his attacks on Senator Elizabeth Warren, also a Dem. He said in a tweet, reporters, I think the president was disrespectful to her by the way he did that. Made this more personal. I think referring to her as her first name when he might have not have done that for a male senator. Perhaps I've said enough. See, the president said that she's a politician like all others. I know we have it. I want to ask you, don't call me on it. It's not sexist. It's that she's against his trade bill. And, play it. Just play it. Let's listen and see what it sounds like.
The truth of the matter is that, Elizabeth is, a politician like everybody else. And, she's got a voice that she wants to get out there. And I understand that. And on most issues, she and I deeply agree. On this one, though, her arguments don't stand the test of fact and scrutiny.
What's wrong with that? He didn't say anything sexist. He called her Elizabeth because she's a friend of his. So this Sherrod Brown ice cream flavor, also a senator, I don't know the difference. They both melt in the face of any heat. Sherrod Brown accuses Obama of sexism toward Elizabeth Warren. Oh, my God. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I, Michael Savage, trust to buy my gold and silver from. Breaking news on the Savage Nation as the third hour comes to a close. ABC's George Stephanopoulos gave not $50,000 to the Clinton Foundation without disclosing it to viewers, but George Stephanopoulos gave $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation without disclosing it to viewers. And by the way, he contributed $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation without full disclosure to the network or viewers while he was covering Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign and controversy surrounding that rotten foundation. George Stephanopoulos apologized Thursday and said he should have revealed the contributions, which were initially reported at $50,000. And as part of his mea culpa, he's pledging not to moderate any presidential debates, at least in the United States of America. This is the Savage Nation with a news update. And by the way, George Stephanopoulos is a former Bill Clinton spokesman and spokesmouth aide, and he has deep ties to the former First Family. Going back to 1998, someone in the media said, beware of the government media complex. You happen to be listening to him. Now let's go to the callers on the topics that have been hanging. KSFO Radio in San Francisco. Michael, go ahead, please. You're on the Savage Nation.
Thank you, Dr. Savage. I was listening to you for many, many years and first-time caller. I came from Soviet Union 1979 for one reason, because I like freedom, and, Soviet Union doesn't have any freedom. And You're absolutely correct. American foundation is crumbling right now because everybody tried to destroy it. And when you destroy a foundation, everything will collapse. Not only our infrastructure, everything. And my understanding, if only you, the voice, who going to create right now savior for America, everybody have to listen to you. I am religiously listen to you, and you're absolutely correct, 100%.
Well, I can't disagree with you, or I would, but you're an engineer, correct? And your main point is that the way construction projects are undertaken in America are somewhat flawed. Isn't that what you wanted to speak about?
That's absolutely correct, because everything, like bridges, roads, buildings, you mentioned about Empire State Building, LaGuardia and everything, that was built with correct and right foundation. What is going on right now with all of these corruptions and no more right foundation? This is why we got constant repair of our roads.
Yeah, well, look at the San Francisco Bay Bridge. Several $1 billion. It cost $6 billion, and the steel rods are rotting. Has anyone has the FBI put anyone in jail yet? No. They're all part and parcel of the same corruption.
You're absolutely right, because this is the problem, because nobody cares anymore. And this is the problem for anyone who live in America. I came to the United States, I create more laser advanced technology for save human lives. And every time when I teach doctors how to use it, I was proud because another life was saved.
Right.
Problem which associate right now with all of this, nobody care about anything.
No, they don't care if a patient dies in front of their eyes. They'd step over the dead body in most hospitals.
Absolutely, and this is the problem.
Look, I could go on and on with you. It's a spiritual rot that is derived from an atheism that is running out of the White House down to the lowest common citizen. When we had presidents who even faked some sort of identity with the creator, that is God, people acted differently. But when you have a phony atheist, as we do in the White House, the people say, you know what, he's right, there's nothing to believe in, why should I care? And they become nihilistic, and they care about nothing. As a result, everything suffers. The work, the art, the poetry, the science, the family, the sun, the moon, the stars, and astronomy itself. We're out of time, but my dear productive friend Michael, I'm sending you a free copy of a book written with love and care called Countdown to Mecca.